A lot's happened since yesterday!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of It's a Lot's Happened Since Yesterday. This is a very special episode because all my episodes are special. All Ralph's episodes are special. All Mike's episodes are special. That's just the way it is. Today's episode...
Special.
We are very special. Today's episode... These are my brothers, man. Below us, but only because of position on the screen.
Yeah.
Below us.
Below us, but not beneath us. How about that?
Starting right out, he's below
He's
us.
below
you
us.
know?
That's
They're just down, you know.
I see what you're doing there.
Oh, we're not cocky.
I'm not saying he's less than. He's just younger than.
I'm just humble. I'm humble.
He's humble.
No, dude.
You let me pick my spot. I picked this.
Here's the thing. He's younger than me, and I look up to him in more ways than I could ever imagine. He is one of my best friends in the world, Mr. Mike Levitsky. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on, brother. And Ralph and Mike, this is your first time meeting.
Yeah, Mike, what's up, dude?
Yeah, it's good to meet you, Ralph. I've heard a lot about you from Cody.
Bro bump. Yeah.
The cameras get all close.
Oh man, I jacked up my computer now.
That is
That
is a cool background you have there, by the way. I'm just like, damn, we're talking to the master of the universe right now.
Right.
It's like, oh.
He can.
That's the built-in Zoom background.
You need to have like.
Let me remove the
Oh,
smoke
really?
and the
Right
mirrors
on,
here.
nice.
Here's the truth.
Oh, dude.
Oh,
dude, you fucked it up. It was brilliant.
You ruined it.
Oh.
Okay. Cut. Now, who's the next guy, dude?
Yeah, we
No,
had
I'm
to.
just
I
kidding.
thought, dude.
That is a cool background you have there, by the way. I'm just like, damn, we're talking to the master of the universe right now.
Right.
It's like, oh.
He can.
That's the built-in Zoom background.
You need to have like.
Let me remove the
Oh,
smoke
really?
and the
Right
mirrors
on,
here.
nice.
Here's the truth.
Oh, dude.
Oh,
dude, you fucked it up. It was brilliant.
You ruined it.
Oh.
Okay. Cut. Now, who's the next guy, dude?
Yeah, we
No,
had
I'm
to.
just
I
kidding.
thought, dude. Yeah, I was lied to this whole time.
I always liked you, though.
And Mike, here's the deal, dude. It even works because what happened? Oh, it looked.
I'm covering the brand. I don't want to do
It's
any
all
buzz marketing. No buzz marketing.
Buzz
marketing. Okay.
You know, you can tell what it is just by looking at it. Right there.
Yeah, the minute you see that
It's
cup,
like
you know
the
we
minute
need
you
It's
see
in and
it,
out.
you're just
Yeah.
all-
I also have my homemade coffee in a Starbucks cup.
He
This
doesn't
is how you
want
make
buzz
people-
marketing. It's in and out.
This is
And
how
I
you
also
make
have a
people think
Starbucks
you're
cup.
rich. No, it's not Starbucks though. I just use their cups. You order the water and then you put your own coffee in there.
Ah,
Lie
no, that's how
bastard,
you
dude.
do
That's
it.
what I'm talking about.
Wow, man.
So I'm gonna summarize a very quick sum up of what Mike is or who Mike is and what he's done.
What I am.
What you are is I'm not sure yet. I've known you a long time. I still ain't figured you out quite, honestly. But first of all, you're a pastor.
Yep.
We are gonna get into that. And before I even start, any of you sons of bitches throw some comments down there that I don't like.
Leave them alone. Let them say what they want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Throw them
fine.
out here. Anyways,
Let them have their.
look at Ralph.
Let them have
defending
their
the crowd.
opinion. Let them have their opinion, man. Hopefully they're on board. If they're not, no.
Comments have been disabled for this video.
I know,
Starting
right?
now.
Starting now. Go. Jesus, was it a cross or a tree? Go. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
We could get into that.
We're
man.
going to.
Oh, I'm familiar. I'm familiar.
No, dude. No. In all honesty, though, I never until recently considered myself very religious. But I always used to say if I had a pastor, Mike would be it. And the reason I say that is because he is.
He's the only one you know.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the first one. Except, well, dude, don't fucking smoking.
No,
mirrors.
wait a minute. Let's tell this story real quick.
What's that?
Mike, you're
Yes, sir.
a pastor and you have the power to marry people, correct?
That's
Oh,
true.
Jesus.
Is
Oh,
it
sorry.
true that you married this son of a bitch up here and his
Yeah,
wife?
I
Oh my
did.
goodness.
Yeah.
That
I
is
think-
awesome.
Hey, and it's not. I am not saying word. I'm just gonna say this, Mike. Tell him where we got married.
Dude, it was the probably. I think it was the second most interesting wedding I've done.
Wait,
It
stop.
was-
What the fuck? How is it the second most interesting?
Well, I'll tell you a story.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh,
I'll tell you a
geez.
story. So we did the wedding at Rubio's in the back table there, actually in the front table by the
No,
window.
it was front. It was front and center
Yeah.
at least.
So
Was
we
it
got the
Baja
marriage
Fresh?
license. We did the ceremony,
We
and
didn't
then
have
we
one.
ate
I would've went there
burritos.
We ate burritos. Yep. And I have to put a hashtag or a caveat or the little asterisk because my wife did not because she was not a fan of Rubio's, so I had to go get her Chick-fil-A.
That's true. I remember.
You know, not only are we gonna make you get married somewhere that you don't like, we're gonna order food from somewhere
In
else.
my
just to-
defense, I asked her, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't care." And then we get there, and she's like, "I think I want Chick-fil-A." I was like, "Okay, no worries."
That's right.
People at Rubio's are just like, what happened?
And I don't think my son would wear pants for your wedding.
He would
either,
not wear
right?
pants. He was chilling. He was chilling in some dungaroos, bro.
Dude,
It
we
was
tried
cool.
to
We
get
were
him to
playing
put the
phone
pants
games and
on.
stuff.
I'm sorry, no pants.
That's a cool story though, man. And I would imagine that really brings you guys' bond as friends even closer together. On a serious note, that has
No,
to do
legit.
something for, you know what I mean? So that's kind of cool. You can call a friend and go, hey man, can you marry me and my fiance?
Well, and the thing
Yeah.
with it's weird because the way me and Mike have always kind of been is even when I called him for that, I don't think we had gone maybe a year, if not longer, until we had really spoken. We had maybe texted back and forth, Merry Christmas and that kind of crap. And then out of the blue, I'm like, hey, dude, I'm getting married in October. You want to come? Because I want you on my, what's it called? The marriage license. And he's like,
Uh-huh.
sure. And then it was just like, boop, and we're back. You know, it really has been.
Yeah.
We have had that kind of relationship where it's just like we just pick up where we leave off no matter what, dude. You know. But
That's awesome, dude.
but
I got some questions for Mike.
no, what go for him, dude. This is what we're
Yeah.
here for.
Mike, let me know a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up?
So well, before we do that, we made a promise to the audience, and now we can't go back on that. I said that I would tell you the first strangest wedding that I ever did.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off from that. Go
No,
ahead.
that's fine.
What was the second one?
Fan
So-
service. Nice.
Yeah.
video.
So it was a Jurassic Park themed
Oh,
wedding,
that was the first one.
and there was a guy while I was doing the ceremony in a Tyrannosaurus Rex blow up dinosaur suit. You know the ones I'm talking about.
Yeah, with the
And
little
he was
face
like-
shield that you have
He
to
was
look
like
through the neck.
walking around like around the altar and stuff during the ceremony, and it was a little strange.
Did you have to
I think
wear a
that was more
safari
strange
outfit?
than getting married at Rubio's. So, I'm sorry, Cody. You only take the number 2 spot.
I will relinquish that. I'll relinquish that to a dinosaur outfit. That's all good.
Yeah, and the altar was it was like the Jurassic Park gate. You know,
Oh,
like it
really?
said Jurassic Park. Yeah, it was interesting. Interesting.
So what were you dressed as?
I just wore, suit. I had a
Oh,
tie.
okay.
I didn't know I didn't know that we were gonna, be having dinosaurs coming around everywhere.
He shows dressed up like John Hammond with the
out or
hat and the
something.
cane. He's like, "Welcome to Jurassic Wedding."
Yep.
So okay. So anyway,
All right.
where were you born, dude? Where were you raised? What area?
Yeah,
Was it
I'm
California?
Southern California native. I was born in Riverside and grew up in Moreno Valley.
Oh,
And
wow.
I lived in Moreno Valley for 32 years. And now I live in Beaumont, California.
Oh, you live in
I-
Beaumont now?
I
Oh,
moved
okay.
out here about 5 years ago when I got hired at the church that I'm currently at right now.
Right on. So how'd you get into the ministry?
Well, I grew up in like a Christian home. So I grew up in church, going to church, and yeah, I just felt kind of like a calling on my life since kind of an early age to be in the ministry. And I really wanted to be a music guy in the church, like a worship guy, play guitar and sing and lead bands and stuff like that. And I was really on that trajectory. And that's how I met Cody at UCR, because we studied music together there. And then just through kind of the leading of God in my life and some things like that, I felt like I had more of a calling to be a teaching pastor than like a music pastor. Although music is still a huge part of my job here at the church and really a huge part of my life. But right now my main focus is behind the pulpit, teaching the Bible.
And make no mistake, he is one of the best drummers I've ever heard.
No, you've told me
And
that
that
many times.
in no uncertain cases. I mean, we don't shake your head at me, man. I've heard a lot of drummers, and I have personally performed with you, and I've watched our band directors get mad at you because you decided, let's do 5 sets of 7 instead of that because it'll even up in the long run. You know how to count.
I used to like to do that kind of stuff.
You were
Yes, that's true.
talk about a walking metronome, dude. He was all about that stuff.
Really?
So
Wow.
on top of the pastoring, you're a musician. So
Well, I mean, that's a common theme with this podcast. I think we try to bring people on here that not only we know, maybe we know them through circles that we are connected with, networking, stuff like that. But mostly people that we know, maybe personally on some level, we've dealt with them on some level, whether it be in the music business or the entertainment industry on one level or another. And that would include you, Mike, because you are a professional musician. I mean, you even teach and you have your own YouTube channel, correct?
Yeah. Music education has been like a huge part of my life. I spent about 9 years teaching high school music at a private school in Redlands called the Packing House.
Right on. That's where I live, Redlands. Right on.
Yeah. And then I was telling Cody yesterday, I've had hundreds, if not approaching, in the 1,000 private students come through, and it's just been a huge part of my life, music education. And I've had opportunities to play all over the world, play drums and in guitar and other things. So yeah, music is a huge part of my life. And I guess I consider that I used to be a professional musician, but I guess by all accounts, I'm a professional musician.
You still are, as long as you make money at it and are considered, on some level. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. A lot of people think that you have to make tons of money to be considered professional. That's not true.
well,
So
Mike and
go
I
ahead.
touched on it yesterday. It is a fine line. We were talking about the music. Would you call it a music scene? Like, how would you describe it? I mean, I can't really call the church music scene or the church
Like church music.
Yeah, like is it church?
Yeah. So
it's a thing.
Is it? Yeah, I guess it's a scene, but what we were talking about is like the difference between, are you making money and playing to glorify God, or are you doing it for the popularity and that kind of thing through the church? So in that's why it's weird, because it's not necessarily seen. Like Mike just said, he's like, I don't really consider myself a professional musician because he's a pastor. He plays music while doing it, but that's not the point of his music at that point. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah. And I totally get that point. However, I think you're missing the point of what, I mean, maybe you're not missing the point. I should take that back. What I was referring to is you can be a professional even if you're not getting like locking down some contract or something like that for a certain set amount of money.
Right.
But if you're going out there and it's much like being a pastor in a way, because the people that go to that church, they're going to put money in the contribution box. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're going to contribute to the church continuing to thrive. So then Mike can make, a living doing what he does based on that. Right. So you could be a musician like us right now, all of us, we could have something set up to where our true fans will, tip us like a tip jar, basically. So technically, I guess my point is it's not how much you make, it's whether or not people are willing to consider what you do valuable.
100%.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. So I would, there's like different categories. So there are like what they would call like a music pastor or a worship pastor, like when the church, so you can have, some churches have a guy who's on staff and all he does is the music. Like that's his job. Like, and so he would, put the bands together and he would lead the music every Sunday or Wednesday or multiple services on Sunday. Here at our church, like we don't have one guy who does the music. Right now we have 3 guys who do music, and all 3 of them, I'm one of them, and all 3 of us are, adequate at what we do. And so the interesting thing about playing in church is like, I play for 600 to 800 people like every week. Like that's normal. And I know some people would, and when I was at the Packing House, I was playing for thousands of people like every weekend. Like that was just like a normal thing.
Yeah.
And, but like, it's interesting because I know there's a lot of smaller bands who are out there who would like kill to play for, 100 people at a time. And it's interesting though, because the dynamic is different. Like where in like for you guys, when you go out like with Ravenscroft or when you were doing, you know, those other types of things, like your whole job is to like entertain the crowd. Like you're there, they've paid money for the show, you're coming out, and it's like, hey, whatever's going on in my life, I'm putting that to the side because I'm here to entertain these people. They paid money, they need to have a good time. Whereas when I'm leading music in a church, it's a little bit different in the way that I'm not there to entertain anybody. Not that people won't be entertained, because that's their prerogative. But my goal is to create an environment where the entire congregation, like all of the church, we can collectively come together and we can sing, because that's as a Christian, like that's what we do. We sing. Christians are singing people. If you go to any Christian church, like two things will happen. You'll have singing, like music, and then you'll have some kind of teaching from the Bible. And so my goal is to get everyone to sing together. And so it's kind of cool because whereas you guys, when you first go out, if you're playing to like a new crowd or something, like you got to win them over with your music and all this. Like if I walk into a new church, nobody knows who I am. We put the song up there, like everyone's already like ready to join in and to like sing along. And because another kind of cool thing about playing in churches is like, it doesn't matter where we go. There's kind of a stock of like church Christian songs. You know, some churches do songs that other churches don't do, but you're going to sing a song that somebody knows. And it's the coolest thing, because you just start playing. Like I get calls and I'll go, before COVID happened, I went up north and I did a marriage conference up there. So there's all these people there, and I show up and I start playing my guitar. My wife went with me, she was singing with me, and we start singing, and everyone immediately is singing along with us, and like they're clapping and they're excited and they're with us. And so that's kind of a really cool aspect of being a church musician, like versus like, you know, I do secular gigs too. Like I play jazz and pickup gigs and that kind of thing. And it's really a completely different thing. And so I don't often think of myself as like a professional musician, because I'm not up there like entertaining people. Although I think if you weren't a believer and you weren't kind of into that coming to church to worship God, and you like watched the band play, like, yeah, you could be entertained. Like the music is good. You know, we do play the guitar and we'll take a solo or whatever. And like, you know, you'll be entertained, but I don't, in my mind, I'm not thinking of myself as going on stage to entertain people. Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the aim is different. Like
Yeah.
you said, your aim is not to play for the people. You're all there to worship, and so that's what you're all doing. It's like all
Now, yeah, I agree. But there is this aspect of being a human,
right?
Where as a human, you want other humans to think that you're cool or you're good, right? And so there is like an internal tension on stage between like getting the congregation to sing together and that we're singing to God, and then also like, oh man, I just learned this new lick, I want to play this, and like, what will people think if I play that lick? And there's a tension there about like drawing attention to yourself, playing for the song, playing music, and then like your own ego. And so there's an interesting kind of internal dynamic, I guess, too.
So there's nothing going on in your head where you're like, here it comes, God's gonna love this. No, it's
you know what, it should be like, and there is an aspect of that. Like, yes, like I want to play well, and Cody, you've known me for a long time. Yeah. Like anything that I do, like I want to do the best that I can, right? Like I want to do it to the highest possible level. And yeah, I do it for God. But I want to play well. Like you don't want to be distracting. Like if you stink, like people will be like, oh man, that's terrible. Like we got to go find a new church. Like this is deal with this. So, but that's an interesting thought. Like I never like went to do a fill and thought, you know, God's really going to love this drum fill.
And I mean, I was doing it to throw it as a joke, but I have known you a long time, and sometimes you do think that way. I mean, you are very, very true to your faith. So
yeah,
I was interested to know if maybe one time you're like, this is for you, Jesus, and just went at it.
Well, so there is an aspect of that. Like, yes, but I think God, it would be less impressed with like the fill that I'm playing or the guitar solo I'm playing or the run that I'm going to sing or whatever.
Right.
And more kind of find joy in the heart than my heart to serve him with the gift of music that he's given me. to use that to sing back to him.
Makes sense.
So it'd be like if your kids came up to you, like you paid a bunch of money for your daughter to get piano lessons or something like that, right? And then she comes to you and she's like, Daddy, like, I want to play a song for you. Like, and she starts playing. Like the caliber of the music that she's about to create for you is sort of like irrelevant compared to like her heart to want to create music for her dad, who has put all this money into, her piano career.
Right.
And so I think it's the same thing. So for me playing music, I want to create the best music that I can for God, but I don't think God's like, oh man, you just played a wrong note. Sorry, brother. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that's what's going on.
No, I don't think he's judging your playing. I was just you come up to the pearly gaze and he's just like, December 3rd, 2020, you were practicing. You came in on the 1. You should have came in on the and of 4. Sorry, brother. You just missed it.
Yeah.
What would you do if that happened? I mean, honestly, you'd be like, what?
I would, yeah,
You'd probably like
really
break
surprised.
your drumstick right there.
I'd be really surprised. Yeah.
I got to do, I got to do that. But speaking of which, I
Yeah.
got something I want to throw in there. Now you mentioned, the whole professional musician thing with, and how, whether it lines up or not with being a pastor of a church or being involved in the band. I guess, is that what it would be considered, the church band?
Yeah.
The house band?
Yeah. It's basically
House of
a
God band.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like
We're not
my
just a house
industry.
band, we're the House of God band.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and it's hard because like it depends on where you go to church. Like some churches have an organist, some churches have just like a guitar player, some churches have like a full choir and an orchestra, and like I mean they got the whole 9. And so, but yeah, you could consider that like the band, the church band.
Right on. So
Yeah.
the church band. So viewing it from that aspect, so I dated this chick, this Christian girl one time, not this chick, but this Christian girl one time, and she was born again Christian, and she went to, I believe it was called Calvary Chapel in Temecula or Murrieta. Anyways, and of course, I'm not, born again Christian. I was raised Jehovah's Witness, but I wasn't at that moment. I wasn't anything.
Right.
I was looking into stuff. I was getting to know myself, exploring myself and exploring the universe and exploring God and what the truth was based on whether or not what I had been raised as a child to believe was truth was actual truth or not. So I was going through that phase in my life. And anyways, but me and this girl, young lady, she was really cool, really nice. We hung out, she invited me to her church. I went, and I started exploring different things, and music was heavily involved.
Mhm.
And then she started talking to me about like more kind of music events. And her brother came up to me and he heard some of my music that I was working on. And he was like, dude, you should totally come to this festival, And then I started finding out that there's a lot there in the Christian music scene. And I hate to say it, but there's a lot of money to be made as well.
Mhm.
Not trying to take away from what the purpose of it is behind the music.
That's actually what I was referring to with the music.
Right.
religious
Well, you
scene. Like,
remember
is
we-
that,
We had our record label at one time when we were in Serpent Underground, even though it didn't go very far with what we were planning to do with that. The point is that they were like, well, what would you guys consider doing, Christian music? You guys would be really good at that. Ralph already has Christian-based like themes in his music and just lyrics. So, what do you guys think about that? And
I completely forgot about that.
and they were like, dude, there's a lot of money there. Those people they're very sincere. They follow the bands and they promote and they really, back them up. So
Yeah.
so there's something to be said there, right? What do you think about all of that?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that. I think first we can make, I think, 2 category distinctions, and then there's one that we'll talk about that kind of like blurs the lines, and that's the hard one. So I think the 2 category distinctions are like specific music that is geared towards congregational worship, like meaning songs that are written for the specific purpose of being sung in a church with a group of people. together collectively, either to each other or to God. So the Bible tells us that we are to sing for two reasons. Like the first one is that we are to sing to God, to like glorify God. So we sing about God, we sing to God. The second reason is that we sing to each other as Christians to kind of edify one another, to build each other up, to kind of to say, hey man, I'm a Christian, you're a Christian, or girl, you're a Christian, I'm a Christian, we're both Christians, and we're singing to each other to encourage each other. So that's congregational worship. And so those are songs that are specifically written for that. Then there's another genre of music that's kind of separate from that I would say is Christian music. So Christian music would be songs that like they could be about God, or they could be about life from the perspective of a Christian, or they could be reflective on some aspect of the Bible, but it's not specifically written for, nor would it be used in the congregation of a church. And I think in that category, like in the Christian music category, yeah, I got no problem with people getting paid for music. I think they're writing great music and great lyrics and things like that. And there's a lot of great bands out there that are Christian bands and even not every single one of their songs is necessarily about God. So like Switchfoot is a great example of that. It's like Switchfoot's a great band. I don't know if you ever heard of them before. They're a rock band, and they have some songs that are their tracks have been in movies and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But they have some songs that are like specifically like Christian, like you're like, oh yeah, that's a Christian song. There's other songs that are a little bit more subtle, maybe have Christian themes, and then there's some songs they write that are just about life, about surfing and hanging out with friends and going places and doing things. And so they might be a Christian band, or they're Christians in a band, but they're not specifically writing like church music. Now, Ralph, what I would say, like I think there would be I don't know, maybe a problem or like it'd be disingenuous if like you guys went and did Christian music, because you guys aren't Christians. But I think that there's probably a good deal of that happening. Like I don't doubt that there's a lot of Christian bands who are writing Christian music, making Christian music. They're on tour, they're out on stage singing Christian songs to Christian audiences who are like, oh, this is great. And then they're going behind stage and like getting with the groupies and getting high and token up and like all the stuff that a Christian band probably shouldn't be doing.
So you're saying they're more like Christian by paycheck?
Well, yeah. So they're Christian. They're not actually Christians.
Yeah.
They're just Christian by name. Now, I would say that a Christian is somebody who's a believer in Jesus, who's been, as you said, Ralph, born again, but maybe the audience doesn't know what that means, but basically they put their faith in Jesus. They've said that Jesus is my King. He's my Lord. I'm going to obey him and do what he tells me to do. And that I would consider that person like a Christian. I don't think a Christian is somebody who goes to church. I don't think a Christian is somebody who prays. I don't think a Christian is somebody who reads their Bible. Like none of those things make you a Christian. I think a lot of people think that they do, but a Christian is somebody who's put faith in Jesus, who says that my salvation or my like life is dedicated to Christ. And the only way that I'm going to get to heaven is because of what Jesus has done for me on the cross, not about my own living and things like that. So I would say that person is a Christian. But there's lots of people who claim the name of Christian. I think there's even a lot of people out there who think that they're Christians who probably aren't.
Well, I think this is where it gets really complex, because now you're talking about whether or not, I mean, based on the if I were to just go cold off of the statement you just made and not get involved more into the conversation and heat it up and see, what I mean, all the intricate details that are involved in that. Yeah. I would just look at it from a straight, here's what makes you a Christian. This and this and this doesn't necessarily make you a Christian. However, where do you draw the line on that? Because you mentioned an interesting point. Some people may think they're Christians, but they're not. Now I know that there's a passage in the Bible where Jesus is talking and basically saying that get away from me, you never knew me. You workers of lawlessness. I don't remember what the passage was, but you get the gist. Does that mean that they are? Does God see them that way? This opens up a big can of worms for me on a lot of levels. And the reason why is because I think that the devil is in the details. And I think there's no such thing as black and white. I think there's a lot of gray. And that's why I love talking to people like you. You're a theologian, you know your stuff. And I'd love to just have conversations with people as yourself, Mike, because it's very interesting to break it down. To me, it's not questioning God. To me, it's questioning myself and other men, other human beings. You know what I mean? Because right now we don't have God in front of us. Yeah. So, you know, he can't tell us, yes, this is correct and this is not. Yeah. This is the wrong way to go over here. You know, what does the Bible say? You know, broad and spacious is a road that leads to, you know, destruction. Mm-hmm. And, you know, very narrow is the road to eternal life. Well, I think that there's a lot of truth to that. And so you make a good point. The only thing that I wonder is, how do you know? How do you determine, you know, and as humans, we're not supposed to judge each other. So there's another factor that comes into play. But yeah, I think that it's interesting because, yes, you could have people that are fundamentally Christians. They were raised with that belief system. And, you know, their parents raised them that way. They went to church their whole lives. They were considered born again Christians. They, you know, they got baptized, whatever it may be. They were doing the ministry. And then one day they said, well, you know what? I love music so much and I want to form this band, but if I do a secular band, my parents are not going to be happy with me. And there seems to be a lot of popularity in this Christian scene, you know, music scene. Maybe I can do that. So, you know, we can't read the heart. Who knows if that person is legit, if they really are truly, you know, a follower of the Lord, or if they're just doing what their parents have taught them to do throughout life, and they're just going with the flow, and they're going, hey, I can play my rock music and still be, you know, and make money, you know what I mean? Maybe even on the side, they're thinking I could get chicks, you know what I mean? So, you know.
All right. So, so there was a lot there. That was a very, very multifaceted question. There was like 8 questions in one. So let me see if I can unpack that for, you know, in a short, podcast friendly manner.
Hey, by the way, we're not gonna do Mike, they're in podcast friendly. I will segment this bitch into like 7 pieces. I don't care. So say what you need to say, brother.
Okay, so first off, so how do you know? That was your first question. Like, how do you know who's a Christian and who's not a Christian? The answer to that is I don't know who's a Christian and who's not a Christian. So there's a concept within theology and Christian theology where we have 2 aspects of the church. Now, when I talk about church, I'm not talking about like the building. So the church comes from the Greek word ekklesia, which means a gathering of people. So the church is a gathering of Christians or a gathering of believers. So there's what we call the universal church, and then there's what we call the invisible church, or the visible church and the invisible church, I guess all. So the visible church is all the people who come to a service on Sunday, right? That would be the visible church. It's the church that we can see, right? You see, oh, hey, that person goes to church, and that person goes to church, or they're out of church. So that's the visible church. In the group of the visible church, there's a collection that we would call the invisible church. And the invisible church is the actual Christians, the people who are really Christians. So you can be in the visible church and you can be part of that and not actually be part of the invisible church. Now, I said, I can't know if you're a Christian or not, but you can know. Like each individual person can know if they're a Christian. So it's not like you're going through your life and you're wondering, am I a Christian? Am I not a Christian? Am I saved? Am I not saved? Like I don't believe that. Now, by the way, this is all coming from my theological perspective, my understanding of the Bible. And by the way, Ralph, all of your questions, like I am not afraid of any question. I'm not afraid to poke at the Bible because I believe the Bible to be true 100%. And I believe that any question that we ask of it will withstand the pressure that we put against it. So don't hold back, man. I'm not afraid.
But that's the way it should be.
Yeah. And there's no secrets. Like there's a lot of religions out there where there's like secret levels, right? You like, oh, you're level 1, we're going to tell you this much. And when you get to level 2, then we're going to tell you this much. When you get to level 3, oh, then you get this much. Like Christianity's not that way. Christianity's like, hey, here's the Bible. This is everything. You can read it all. I'm a pastor. Like I'm at the highest level that you can get in.
You're a black belt, basically.
Okay? And I'll tell you, like, there's no secrets. Like I went to seminary. I got my master's degree in theology. And when I got there, I wasn't like, oh my goodness. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's no secrets in Christianity. There's no gotchas. There's no like pulling the rug out from underneath you. There's no bait and switch. And so
There was no
There's-
red pill, blue pill.
No, there's
No?
there's
Okay.
none of that. Like the message of Christianity is the same that I would tell you or I would tell anybody as it is like at the highest level. The only difference is like your knowledge of like the connections that are in the Bible grow, and like you understand things like at a deeper level, or you think kind of in a broader, bigger perspective on things. But the underlying message is the same. And that was a side note. So you got the universal church and the visible, or the invisible church and the visible church. Now, how do you know if you're in the part of the invisible church? Well, like you said, there's a lot of people kind of walking around who think they're Christians and stuff. So Christianity for me, and in my kind of theological perspective of the Bible, and this would be representative of I guess kind of like non-denominational churches, Reformed churches, and Christian kind of genre in that vein. This wouldn't be like for Catholics or that other one. But here's how you know if you're Christian. Okay, so I believe that each human is born with a sinful heart, and I believe that God is holy, and I believe that God has a certain way that He wants us to live, like a rule set by which we're supposed to live by. And because of the sinfulness in our heart, we can't live the way that God wants us to live. Like no human has ever been able to do it since the beginning of creation, from Adam all the way down to you and me and Cody and everyone. And so because of that, God took on human flesh in the form of Jesus. He and this would be a point where you and I would probably disagree if you came up Jehovah's Witness, but this is my theology.
No, that doesn't mean that that's my opinion, though.
Yeah. So
that's just how I was raised.
Right. So God, I believe that God is a Trinitarian God. He exists as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That the second person of the Trinity, which would be God the Son, He takes on human flesh in the form of Jesus, and He lives a perfect, obedient life to God, like a life that we weren't able to attain on our own, right? So Jesus lives this perfectly righteous life. He's loving, He's kind, He treats everyone well. He does all these great things, and then at the end of His life, around the time that He's like 30, 33, somewhere in there, He's crucified on a cross, right? And that crucifixion is in our place because of our sinfulness. So the scriptures tell us that the wages of our sin, or our failure to keep God's holy law, results in death or separation from God. That's really what you can think of death as, because God is the author of life, and we need to be connected to God for life. And if we're separated from God, that's death. And the Bible has a few terms to talk about that, hell and other things. Anyway, Jesus, He dies on a cross in our place for our sins. He crucifies our sins on the cross. The scriptures tell us that He became sin who knew no sin, that we might become the righteousness of Christ, right? So he's buried, and then 3 days later, He rises from the dead, and he goes around, He appears to multiple people, and He says, listen, if you put faith in me, faith that my life, my righteous life, takes the place of your sinful life, and you trust that my death on the cross is gonna pay the price for your sins, then you'll be saved, right? Like that, your faith in Jesus's life and death and resurrection, that's what saves you. That's what gives you salvation, and it reconciles you unto God. And then that allows for me then to live my life almost with a safety net, right, underneath me. Like I have the safety net, so now I can serve God and please God and do my best to please God, even though I'm probably not going to do that great of a job, knowing that it's not based on me. Like it's not based on my righteousness or my ability to keep the law or my ability to love Jesus enough or my ability to love people enough or do enough good. The good that Jesus has done in His life is there's a big church word called imputed, which means it's placed upon me. I'm declared righteous. I'm not actually righteous, but I have Jesus's righteousness on me. And so the rest of my life, I serve God and I love people, not so God will like me, but because God has already saved me. And it's just a way for me to thank God and say, God, you saved me. Thank you so much for saving me. I'm going to serve you with the rest of my life. Not because if I don't, He's going to smote me, or if I don't, He's going to be angry with me, or if I don't, He's going to crush me or anything like that. No, because I'm already saved through Jesus. Like I don't have to earn my salvation. I don't have to do anything. Jesus, he got that for me, and He gave it to me as a gift. And the rest of my life is just, it's like, it's all gravy. Like it's icing on the cake. So,
but don't you think, and I not to cut you off, bro, but
no, cut me off. It's fine.
Don't you think that kind of goes against the the thought that what is it? Well, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know the passages anymore. At one time, I could quote them off to you like nobody's business.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm a little bit dull when it comes to my actual scriptural reference. However, I do remember the passages.
Sure.
And I do remember that one said that those who endure to the end, only those who endure to the end will be saved. So that means that there's endurance involved. So that means it's not just based on a one-time thing where you decided in your heart that you were a servant of God and that you were giving your heart to him. It means you have to endure whatever comes your way, whatever tribulation comes your way. Just like basically Job, the story of Job comes to mind with that, because he was tested on a real level.
Mhm.
According to the Bible, I don't think many people could have passed that test.
Sure.
And so that was, but he endured it. And so I think that that's a lot of what it's based on. I mean, we can see it in what God has done in the past, according to the Bible, with Abraham, asking him to take his own son's life, and then pulling out last minute when God realized he was going to do it. So it's almost like actions do speak louder than words,
Mhm.
and talk is cheap. So it kind of goes along with what most people think as far as that goes, whether you're a Christian or not. You know what I mean? Most people think actions speak louder than words, talk is cheap. And those who are there for you when you really need them in those times of distress, those are the people that are really there for you. Those are the true Christians, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Yeah, so perseverance of the saints is kind of what you're talking about. This idea that those who persevere till the end will, ultimately they ultimately were Christians. And this is a debate within Christianity, right? So you kind of have two sides. You have those who would be more on what's called the Arminian side, and they would say that you can lose your salvation, like you personally, like if you fall away or you don't persevere or you don't keep your own salvation, like you can walk away from Christianity and say, I'm no longer a Christian, and God like removes your eternal life, like your salvation. Yeah. Then there's those who are on the other side, which is where I would be, which we believe in what's called perseverance of the saints. And it's not that me as a Christian that I'm going to succeed in all the tests. It's that God himself is holding on to my salvation, that God himself has given me salvation as a gift, and that I can't do anything to have that taken away from me. So because Jesus is the one who has given me that. And so I also believe that because God indwells me, and I realize if you're not a Christian, you're listening to this, you're like, this guy's nuts. Like that's fine. So I believe that God, he lives inside of me, like, right? When I become a Christian, like when you put faith in Jesus, like something happens, like God comes to dwell in you, that the Bible tells us that we're adopted as sons and daughters into God's family, that God comes to indwell us, and he gives us his Holy Spirit, which empowers us to serve him. So I believe that God may bring tests into my life, yes, but he is never going to put something in my life that's going to push me so far that I will go over the edge, because his Spirit is walking with me and is going to walk with me through those problems.
I've heard that many times, that saying, and I got to believe, I got to be honest with you, I should say.
Sure.
I've never had too much stake in that, because people change. If you want to get into,
if you want to get into what?
Maybe a non-Christian viewpoint on this. If you want to get into maybe a non-Christian viewpoint on this, I mean, I have no idea. Was Star Wars, what is that based on some Christian, belief systems? I don't know. I would imagine
Star Wars
yes. It
pretty
seems
much
Star
tells
Wars?
the entire Christian
Star Wars,
story.
like that's what I'm saying. It's like Darth Vader is kind of like Lucifer. He was in God's grace at one time, and then he fell away, like really a long drop, one that you do not come back from. So is it?
But he did come back, dude.
Who?
Darth Vader. He was
okay, but we're
saved
not
at the end.
talking about Darth Vader at this point. That's Darth Vader. We're talking about Lucifer now. Oh, I mean, I was just comparing the two.
Yeah. But okay, so if you're talking about the devil, like that.
But he was perfect, wasn't he?
Well,
to start off.
he's in a fundamentally different category than you and I, because we're human beings, right? We're created in the image of God. We've been redeemed by Jesus. So Jesus came as a human to redeem the human race. Like Jesus didn't come to redeem the spiritual realm, like the angelic realm, right? So, and we don't know why. We don't know why, but we do know that humans were the pinnacle of God's creation, and that Jesus came and he died to redeem humans. And so Satan, he was once created. He wasn't perfect. I got to be real careful with my language. He wasn't perfect, and neither were Adam and Eve. They weren't created perfect. They were created innocent, right? They were innocent, and the creation was good, but they had free will. They had free choice, right? So Satan had a free choice to serve God or to not serve God, and he chose not to serve God. Adam and Eve, they had a choice to serve God and not serve God. They chose not to serve God. You, Ralph, you have a choice to serve God or not serve God. You have that freedom to make that choice.
From another point of view,
yeah,
it sounds like what we're really talking about is you got to be very self-accountable to everything you do. If you want to be true, are you a Christian? Well, are you? Like Mike said, because you're either doing, and in your heart you're doing it right and you're doing what you're supposed to, or you're not, and you're not quite there yet.
Okay, but here's the thing that this is important for me to get across. Like, it's super important. And then I also want to talk about that Abraham story, Ralph, because you said something that's interesting. So something that I want to get across that's really important is that in my faith tradition, from where I'm coming from, your salvation is not based upon works. It's not based on what you do. It's based on what Jesus has done for you. And so Cody, like what you said about, are you doing it right? Are you doing it wrong? I think there's a lot of people who have faith in Jesus and who are trusting in Jesus for salvation, who are, if you looked at their life, they're quote unquote doing it wrong, right? They're sinning in some way that they shouldn't be doing, but their salvation is going to come through Jesus's life and death and sacrifice for them. And that's what the whole Bible is about. Even the Abraham story, the whole Bible is about the fact that humans can't do it. The whole Old Testament is about how humans can't do it, and no human could ever do it, and that Jesus was the only human who could do it. And so our salvation only comes through faith, just believing in Jesus. And then everything else that comes from that, like all the good works, like, yes, as Christians, I'm supposed to do good works, but I don't do good works so that I have salvation. I have salvation, and that leads to me doing good works. Like, do you understand the point?
I get where you're coming from. I think a lot
for services kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would compare that to what comes first, the chicken or the egg, though. They would say, which one is you know what I mean? Which one?
So, yeah. So I would say
that
that works.
the walk, or are you talking the talk?
Right. I would say, though, that works are the evidence of salvation.
Okay.
That works aren't the means to salvation. Does that make sense? So if I'm a Christian, I should have some good works in my life. I should have fruit in my life. But if I have fruit in my life, if I'm doing good works, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm a Christian.
That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Just like this, I mean, to put it in another way that has nothing to do with religion, just because you are a millionaire doesn't mean you worked hard for your money.
Yeah.
You could have had a rich grandfather who left you millions, and now all of a sudden you're a millionaire. But somebody who works hard could also be a millionaire.
Think about it like this. If you told your daughter to go mow the lawn, or your son to go mow the lawn, right? And you were a great dad, and you loved your kids like a lot, and you were like, hey, will you go mow the lawn? And then your kid's out there mowing the lawn, right? And then the guy across the street, he's a terrible dad. He's always like beating his kids, and he's drunk. He's yelling at them all the time. He's like, they're scared of him. And he's like, you get out there and mow the lawn. And that kid's mowing the lawn. And then you walk by, you see these two people mowing the lawn. These two kids are out mowing the lawn, right? They're both doing the same thing. But you walk out and you ask the first kid, you're like, hey, why are you out here mowing the lawn? And you're like, oh man, my dad loves me so much. He's so kind. Like, he asked me to mow the lawn. I was like, sure, Dad, I'd love to help you out. I'd love to mow the lawn. The other guy, he's out mowing the lawn, and you ask him, you're like, hey man, why are you out there mowing the lawn? And he's like, oh man, if I don't mow the lawn, my dad's going to beat me. My dad's going to punish me. Like, And that's the difference. Like the first guy is what I believe is salvation. The God loves me so much, I'm going to go mow the lawn because I love him. Like, I love Jesus. Like, and I'm not afraid to say that, like, for the whole world. I'm in love, and I don't care who knows it. Like, it's Buddy the Elf. So But a lot of people, they're living their lives like the second guy, like that if they don't do good works, God's going to just smite them or punish them or be angry with them. But they fail to realize that they have no ability to please God on their own outside of just putting faith in Jesus.
I think a lot of people that believe in God believe in whether it be hell, actual, an actual hellfire, that place where you go, an abode that you go to that's just on fire all the time and you're constantly being tormented and burned alive or whatever. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
But I don't buy into the hell theory at all. And we can go into that at another time. But I will say this, I do think that is what makes most people try to be on the level. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's like having an established government and having law and order in your society, because if not, there would be nothing but chaos, right? So you'll have to kind of keep the people in line to a certain degree. And I think in a lot of ways, religion has done that throughout the years. Many religions, not just the Catholics. I think Christians have been involved in it as well. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so, but that's a topic for another time. I wanted to hear what you wanted to say about Abraham.
Oh yeah, so the Abraham story. So you said that God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son and then pulled out at the last minute when he realized that Abraham was actually going to do it. I think that God from the beginning knew that Abraham was going to do it. I also think that if Abraham would have been obedient to God at the beginning, that God would have never asked him to sacrifice his son. Because Abram and Sarai, when they first come on the scene, if you remember, when God first appears to Abraham, he's 75 years old. And Sarai is that old too. And God appears to him and he says, listen, I'm going to make of you a great nation, Abraham. From you, there's going to be as many as the number of the grains of sand on the seashore, as many as the number of the stars. And Abraham's like, how's that going to happen, man? I'm like 75 years old. My wife's old. And the scriptures even tell us that the time of the woman had gone from her, which means she's already gone through menopause. So you have this menopausal woman and this old man, 75 years, right? Then 11 years later, God appears to him and says, hey, Abraham, I'm going to make you a great nation. And Abraham's like, dude, it's been 11 years. Where are you? Like, what's going on? I've been waiting 11 years. I have no family. Like my servant is going to have to inherit my estate. And God's like, no, you're going to have a son. And so Sarai,
he's having an argument with God. He's like, God, you're crazy. You don't know crap. I'm not having a baby.
Well,
I'm 75.
essentially that's kind of what happens. He's like, hey, I don't see this happening. Right. So his faith is beginning to wane.
Yeah.
His faith is beginning to wane. And so Sarai, or Sarah at the time, because her name's then changed, she has a servant named Hagar. And she's like, hey, Abraham, I got a good plan. I'm going to take Hagar and I'm going to give her to you. And then you're going to go sleep with her and you have a baby with her since I'm barren and I can't have kids. And the scriptures, it's interesting right here because it says, then Sarah took Hagar, her servant, and gave her to Abraham. And that seems benign at first. You're like, oh, that's benign. That's like, whatever. But if you understand biblical motifs, you realize that in Genesis chapter 3, when Adam and Eve were at the tree, Eve sees that the fruit is good, right? Which is bad. And it says, and she took the fruit from the tree and she gave some to her husband to eat, which implies this is a bad plan. So when we get to Genesis, this is Genesis chapter 12, Abraham's story. We see this as a bad plan. So so Abraham has this son with Hagar, which she's an Egyptian, right? He's inflicting pain on the Egyptians, which ends up reversing on them later as Egypt puts the people of God into slavery. Anyway, so Abraham has failed to trust in God, right? So now we have Sarah and Abraham. Then God appears to Abraham when he's 99. Sarah has gone through menopause. She's super old. He's super old. And God says, listen, Abraham, I'm going to give you a son. And Abraham says, so the promise is going to come through Isaac. And he goes, no, not Isaac. You're going to have a son, the son that I promised you. That's going to be Ishmael. And then Sarah, his barren old woman of a wife, gets pregnant.
Take it easy there,
Yeah,
Greg.
Right?
We got an audience here.
Yeah. Well, okay, she's 99 years old,
that's
right?
true.
Okay. So listen, she's barren and she's old, gets pregnant, has a son. Now, this son already is a miracle. It's a miraculous thing. Not only did this barren woman have a son, but it was a son. God prophesied that she would have a son. So she gets pregnant. It could be a boy, it could be a girl. They don't know in that time, right? Boom, it's born. It's a son. So it's a miraculous child. Like, this was a gift of God to Abraham. And so when God asks Abraham to sacrifice his son, he's not testing whether or not Abraham is going to kill his son. That's not what the test is. The test is this: Abraham, are you going to trust that I'm going to make you a great nation out of this child that I've given you as a gift, right? It's already a miraculous child. The child should not even be there. God gave Abraham that child. So then the test is Abraham going to trust in the promise of God? And Abraham does. And here's a crazy thing. This is a super amazing thing. You go look in your Bible, you can check this out. And we find throughout the scriptures, we're looking for somebody who will listen to the voice of God. If you look in Genesis chapter 3 at the fall, when Adam and Eve fall at the tree, God begins to curse Adam and Eve, and it says, because you listened to the voice of your wife, these things have happened, right? Because you listened to the voice of your wife. When we get to the end of the Abraham story, after the sacrifice takes place and Abraham says, no, don't sacrifice your son. I'll prepare a sacrifice for you. By the way, this is happening on the Mount Moriah, which is the same place where Jesus is crucified. It's a foreshadowing, thousands of years before Jesus is crucified. It's a foreshadowing of the crucifixion of Christ. It's all there if you look at it. We don't have to go into it. But anyway, God says to Abraham, and we've been waiting for this for all this time, for like 25, 22 chapters in the book of Genesis. He says, because you have listened to my voice. And this is the first human that we have here who's listening to the voice of God, who's doing what Adam and Eve were commanded to do at the beginning. And it's the inauguration of God's miraculous people, right? The people of Israel who were raised up through Abraham. Now, not to get too deep, but this exact same language is used when we get to the book of Luke and the inauguration of Jesus, when the angel Gabriel shows up to Zechariah in the temple, and his wife, Elizabeth, is also old, advanced in years, and she is unable to have children. And it's the exact same language before Jesus is used. And so the Bible has all of these miraculous connections all the way through that are super interesting. So anyway, I know it's kind of a side tangent, but I did want to talk a little bit about Abraham.
Well, that is interesting for sure. I mean, back then, didn't humans live much longer than the average age span of today? What is it? 70 or 80 for females is 80, I think. Men, it's like 75, 76, something like that.
Yeah.
So, but I, you know what I'm saying is like, I mean, that's a point, I guess. But I was just thinking those guys lived to be like 150 back then, didn't they?
Yeah. The lifespan. I mean, if you take the dates in the Bible as, truthful and not fanciful or whatever, which I do, but I know there's people who don't. But yeah, they would live. I mean, at the beginning, before the flood and all that, like Abraham or Adam and Eve and Enoch and those guys, they lived to be like 900.
Yeah.
How much do you take the Bible 100% truth, or do you subscribe that there's metaphors and fanciful writing and?
This is important. No, I believe that the Bible is true. I believe the Bible is inerrant, but I also believe that we need to read the Bible in the genre in which the Bible is being written. And there's multiple genres in the Bible. There's poetry in the Bible. So like the book of Psalms is a book of poetry. Mm-hmm. And if you read Psalms literally, I think that's wrong, because it's poetry and it's supposed to be poetry. And like, you should read it as poetry. But it doesn't mean that it's not true. There's a lot of metaphor and simile and other things like that. So it says like the trees will clap their hands. And it's like, well, trees don't have hands. So that's obviously poetic.
Right.
But when the Bible can be taken literally or expects to be taken literally, then yes, I do take it literally.
How do you know though? Like, how do you know?
Well, I guess that's that's the true path of the theologian.
Yeah. It's pretty clear. Right? I mean, if I hand you
in the belly of the whale, that's literal or that's figurative?
I think that the book of Jonah is literal, but I also think it doesn't matter, that story. So the book of Jonah is very interesting, super interesting. Oh man, I love to talk about it. But it doesn't matter at that point, because whether that's a fanciful story or just kind of a made up tale or not, it doesn't have anything theologically it doesn't change anything theologically within the Bible, whether or not Jonah is a true story or not.
Well,
Well, is
go ahead, Ralph.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
No, I was just gonna ask. I'm sorry, dude. I was just gonna ask. Isn't the story of Jonah? Isn't that a moral tale, a morality tale? Like here's the moral of this story, kind of thing. Like when somebody tells you a joke and you're just kind of like, well, that wasn't funny. That was just a story. And then at the end of the joke, they go, now what's the moral of the story? And then they hit the punchline.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
anyways, my point is that, maybe Jonah was like a moral of the story type story, because he wasn't it that, he was praying to God in the belly of this whale, begging for forgiveness or whatever. And then the whale like throws him up or something.
Well, okay. So the interesting story, yeah.
Or something,
The interesting thing about Jonah is like everyone wants to make the story of Jonah about the fish, the great fish, which might be a whale. I don't know. But there's only one verse in the book of Jonah that mentions the great fish. The whole rest of the book is not about the fish.
At this point, I kind of regret bringing up Jonah because I was just trying to find an example of really outlandish stories in the Bible that.
Oh, dude, I got way.
Take it literally versus figuratively.
There's way more outlandish stories in the Bible. There's crazy stuff in the Bible, man. Like just super crazy stuff. Like I get it. Like I get when you read the Bible that they're like there's a ton of crazy stories and there's stuff like think about it. The Bible, it's an ancient book. Like it's an ancient book. It was written thousands of years ago in another language. Like it was written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, and then we translate it to English and we read it in a modern culture and context, kind of stripped away from a lot of stuff. And then when we try to say like, oh yeah, this means this and this means that and this means this. And so like that was one thing about going to seminary is like you study, like I studied Hebrew, I studied Greek. I didn't study Aramaic, but not much of the Bible's in Aramaic. But I studied Hebrew, I studied Greek, I studied the ancient cultures, the Semitic languages and things like that. And so that gives me kind of a perspective of like what this stuff meant to the original audiences, the genres and things like that. But like I would say most of the things that you read in the Bible where you're like, man, that's crazy, that can't be true, I probably believe it's true. Like I believe there was a global flood. Like I know that's crazy. I believe that God created the universe out of nothing. I believe that the human race came from, two people. And the age of the earth, like I'm not fixed on that. There's some people that say, oh, the earth's only 6,000 years or the earth is a billion years. I don't think the Bible really cares how old the earth is. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't.
Well, it's not really what it's about, right? It's not, it's a history book in a way, but it's not like based on historical facts, although it does have, some of that in there.
Well, haven't a lot of the Bible been proven like scientifically and historically?
Yeah. So listen, I think the Bible's historically true, but I don't think that the Bible is it's not a science book. Right. So like when the Bible is like describing creation or something like that, like it's not trying to give me a scientific explanation.
Right. Exactly.
And I think a lot of people come to the Bible and they say like, so you hear this all the time, like evolution versus creation, like they're like, they're battling with each other. But like there's a lot of Christians, like good Christians, who are what they call theistic evolutionists. Like they believe that evolution is compatible with the Bible.
Sure.
I don't understand how that is even a point of debate between even science and religion. I mean, we can observe evolution. We literally can watch it happen. How is it? How does it? They say it disproves religion. Evolution.
Yeah, I get it. Well, like so, microevolution for sure. Like we see microevolution everywhere. Like things change, things adapt, things like the Finch experiments and all those kinds of things. But macroevolution, where one species becomes another species. We've never observed that because even in the theory of evolution, like it just takes too long to actually observe it. And so I think there's where they say, that there's a problem in some people, but it's a debate that I don't think needs to be going on. I think it takes away from issues that are more important to be talking about.
Yeah. It's not the point of the discussion and people just get caught up in that. I could see that.
No.
I could see that.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, technically, you could also say that with the Bible, as with almost just about anything, you mentioned a good point. It was written in another language. Is it possible that some stuff was lost in translation? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, some people are going to argue that. Yeah, some people would argue that, but I don't think so.
Mike, what were we talking about? I'm trying to remember because we had a conversation and I wish I could remember. I want to say it had something to do with Job. but it was something to do with, you even mentioned, you said it gets iffy because the word can mean like several different things. And so in the translation, the words and the way they're expressed can be interpreted differently. So you'll have different views.
Yeah. So here's something that I guess, could laying all the cards out on the table, like for, whatever, like, so the Bible, I believe the Bible's true.
Sir.
Yeah. I believe the Bible's true. Like, I believe it's 100% true.
Right.
Like all the stuff that's in the Bible that is true, but I don't necessarily think that everything that I believe about a particular passage of scripture is the right interpretation. I believe there's one right interpretation. And I believe that my goal as a theologian, as a pastor, is to study the scriptures and try to determine, what does the Bible mean when it's saying this, or what is the Bible saying when it's saying this? And what you'll find if you really start to study Christianity and stuff, there's disagreements. Like, there's disagreements on certain passages. There's a passage in Genesis chapter 6 that says, when the sons of God saw the daughters of men were beautiful, they took all that they pleased as their wives. And there's two interpretations of that. Some people believe the sons of God were like the lines of Seth, like this holy bloodline. But there's another group of people that believe that the sons of God were angels, that somehow angelic creatures have crossed over from the spirit realm into the human realm, and they impregnated humans and creating this giant race called the Nephilim. Yeah. And so there's debates on either side. But what I will say is there's nothing within Christianity that is a fundamental need to be a Christian that isn't explicitly clear in the scriptures. There's lots of little things that we disagree on, like whether you should baptize people by dunking them underwater or by pouring water on their head or by sprinkling them. People disagree. Like, we have disagreements. Whether, Ralph, like what we talked about before, whether Christians make it all the way to the end or whether you can lose your salvation. That's kind of a debate internally. There's also a debate on the sovereignty of God. Does God choose who's going to get saved, or do people choose on their own who's going to get saved? Those are internal debates. What's not debated is that there's one God who created all things, that Jesus was born of a virgin, that Jesus died on a cross, that Jesus rose from the dead, that salvation is offered to all men freely, that salvation comes through faith. Those things, every single person who's a Christian under that orthodox umbrella of Christianity, we would agree on that. And that's the primary issue. We might have disagreements on the secondary and the tertiary issues, but I just think those are fun.
Well,
like,
I think
fun to talk about.
That happened. That's been going on forever, man. I mean, isn't that what a sect is? Isn't that what a denomination is? You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So basically, there are many denominations within the Christian organization or religion, and also in other religions, and a sect as well. I mean, I guess where I came from, Jehovah's Witnesses, that's what I was raised with. I'm not currently. I don't have any kind of specific denomination or any kind of specific organization that I follow as far as religion goes, but I am a spiritual person. I do believe that I have a personal relationship with God. That being said, I would say that Jehovah's Witnesses could be considered a sect because they had the fundamental Christian beliefs initially. And a lot of them that got together initially were theologians. They were studying the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they felt that there was a translation thing going on. So anyways, basically, I mean, that we can go deep into that at some point. I really wanted to get off topic of what we're talking about right now, and maybe have you back another time and we can talk about some other stuff and get really deep into some stuff. That'd be interesting. It'd be great to have you on again, Mike, like that. But for now, I'd like to talk about current events because you're a pastor and you live out here in Southern California, and you have a flock that you have to take care of. You have to give them the food at the proper time. You know what I mean? You have to feed them with the spiritual fortitude so that they can have faith to keep going. These are hard times we're living in. Wouldn't you agree with the COVID-19? How has that affected you? How has that affected your ministry?
Yeah, so I think it's it's been difficult for everyone, for churches across the world, really, and the United States, starting, let's see, March, April or so, they began, locking everything down, closing everything down. Churches weren't allowed to meet, like we weren't allowed to gather together, which we believe is like a fundamental aspect of being, a church is gathering together and singing together and studying the Bible together. So that was super difficult. So my role at the church here currently is I'm music guy. So I play music and help with the music team. And then I'm the youth pastor. So I have a youth group of like teenagers, high school, middle school. That's kind of my primary role. And it was a little easier for us because I have younger people, but we sort of moved everything online, which was strange. So I do a lot of this stuff where I'm just talking to the screen of my computer, and it's getting disseminated to the congregation. I played my guitar and sang like to my computer and put the lyrics up. And I tried to figure out how to do some online games. And we were using like, I forget what the name of that thing is, where you do the quiz stuff online. But so that's kind of what's going on my end. But congregationally, man, it's been really, really hard on people. It's been really, really hard on people. The church that I'm at here, like not the youth group, but the main congregation, we have an older congregation. We're in Beaumont, which is kind of a retirement town. There's 4 retirement communities in town. And so many of the members of our church they're older, and they're susceptible to COVID. And so it's a dangerous thing for them. So they're kind of afraid to get out of their houses and to come out. They can't come to church. And so we at our church, we have membership. And so we know all the people who go to our church or who have committed to our church, and we have their phone numbers. And so we tried to reach out to everyone, and we try to call the people from our church and say, hey, how you doing? How can we serve you? How can we help? How can we pray for you? And so we've been trying to take care of people in that way. But I've seen just from, the last 6 months or so, like amongst even the teens and the older people, the adults, like a lot of depression and anxiety and fear and loneliness and, just a lot of these things that people are going through, that probably a lot of you guys are going through too, who are listening. And so we've just been doing our best to care for those people. As a pastor, like, yes, I teach the Bible and I play music and I do a lot of fun stuff like that. But another huge aspect of my job is to just to care for people, to listen to people, to pray for people, to talk with people and let them know that we love them, that God loves them, and that God can serve them through the church and through prayers. We also have a really big food pantry here at the church, and we've had hundreds and hundreds of people come through every week where we're giving out food and kind of helping in those areas. But it's been difficult. It's been an interesting transition. One thing that I used to do weekly is go to the hospital and visit people. I'm not allowed in the hospital anymore, so I can't visit anybody, and that's been hard. We have congregants who are dying, and nobody can go visit them in the hospital. They can't be with their families. We can't do funerals. Like for a while, we could only have 10 people at a funeral, which is tragic. So like family and friends can't say goodbye. They can't come and celebrate life. It's been really, really difficult. But we don't grieve, as those who have no hope. We hope in Christ. We also believe, I believe that this didn't take God by surprise. I believe in the omniscience of God. He knows all things. He knew this was coming. I don't believe that he caused it, but I believe that he knew it was coming, and he's going to walk with us through it and give us the grace that we need to get through this situation, and to get through it in a way where I still have, some space within my heart to share with other people and encourage other people and carry other people along as God gives me the ability to do that.
So you don't think we're going to be seeing like the 4 horsemen flying across the sky anytime soon?
Yeah, end time stuff, right?
Yeah, it's not coming.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. It's like most people have like a dispensational eschatology, which is like, ooh, those are some big church words.
I was just going to say, what are you doing, man?
Yeah. So most people believe in this. Not most people, but we could get into it later, but yeah, there's a lot of people who believe that, that the 4 horsemen are coming, and
I was going to ask,
the church is going to disappear.
There has to be a ton of people who are afraid of that, right? I mean, this
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
hit the world in a big bad way. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people were like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
I think in general, people have the tendency to immediately go to the worst in their minds.
Yeah.
When it comes to any kind of tragedy, when it comes to whether it be a terrorist attack like 9/11 or something like this, a virus that's just taking people's lives, indiscriminately. The virus doesn't care who you are or who you believe in. You know what I mean? Who you pray to at night, it's going to take you no matter what. And so a lot of people I'm sure whether they believe in God or they believe in science or whatever it is.
I only believe in science.
That's all that.
I only believe
Nacho
in
Libre.
science. Science is going to save us. No, I know, right now.
We never win because you only believe in science.
You open the can of worms.
Well, but anyway, you get my point. Is I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are thinking, man, this is, the Bible talked about, there were going to be a lot of, diseases and famine and, wars and all these, acts of God, so to speak, or
Yeah.
that's what it says in your, when you sign the Dish Network. In case of an act of God, like
That's
what?
Wait a
Anyways, wait a minute. What am I paying for?
Um,
Anyways,
But Mike, did you?
what
What were you gonna say, Rob?
Well, I was just going to ask, not to cut you off. Did you ask him what you want to ask him? But I was just going to ask, what are your thoughts on this? What is your personal thought?
Exactly what I was gonna ask.
Is this part of the end times? Are we getting closer, so to speak?
Yeah. So I'll say it like this. Here's a very like.
He gets so excited. You could see him just just turn like, oh yeah, we get to talk.
No. Here's an easy answer is like, we're closer to the end than we've ever been before, right? Like that's true. We're moving forward. So, a scriptural thing, and I hate to always just jump back and quote the Bible, but I'm a pastor, man. Like, what else would you expect?
And isn't that all we
But
have? Really?
But I do want your personal.
No. I'll give you my personal opinion.
I mean?
The scriptures tell us that no man knows the day or the hour of the end time. Like nobody knows. And like a thief comes in the night, the Son of Man will return. So when Jesus comes back, when the end times is, I don't know.
Nobody knows.
But there are signs, like you said, the scriptures say, hey, when these things happen, when there's wars and rumors of wars and famines and earthquakes and all this, the scriptures say these are the beginnings of the end. And so, how long we have or what, I'm not really sure. Is this the beginning of the end? I don't think so. My personal opinion, to be honest, like with coronavirus and everything, when it came out, like I'm not afraid. Like, I'm not afraid to die. Like I told Cody this a long time ago, like personally, like I can't wait to die because like I'm going to be with God forever in eternity. Like, and I believe that, like, so death to me is not scary. I don't want to like have pain in my lungs and like, that doesn't sound very fun.
You don't want to die in a fire.
No, I don't want to have a terrible death. Like, I want to die fast if I'm going to die. Like,
It's
I
not
want
the
to
death
go
you're
quick.
afraid of. It's how you die that everybody's fucking scared of.
Exactly. But I think a lot of people, man, are just afraid of death. Like they don't know what's on the other side of death. They don't know. Like if they get coronavirus, they don't know what's over there, and so that leads to a lot of fear, right? And that leads to a lot of like anxiety because like, man, if I get this, like what's going to happen? I might die, and like what's going to happen there? Also, the isolation's hard for people, but I'm married, I have a wife and kids, so I don't have to deal with that part. I have a relationship with God, and so I'm connected with Him. I'm more annoyed by coronavirus than fearful of it. Like my favorite thing, like you could see, like as this podcast went by, I drank an extra large iced tea and a coffee. Like I like drinking liquids, non-alcoholic, of course. I like drinking liquids. And I love going to the restaurant.
What's wrong with that?
There's nothing. I'm not condemning if you like to drink beer or whatever. That's fine. Like I don't think the Bible condemns drinking alcohol. I think it does condemn drunkenness, but drinking alcohol, I don't think it condemns. But anyway, I love sitting at a restaurant and enjoying a drink while I'm reading a book or studying or watching. And dude, I haven't been able to do that for almost a year. Like that's really sad,
Yeah.
My kids had to go into homeschool, and my wife has been struggling a lot with that. Like it's just not in her skill set to school the kids. My kids have been isolated from their friends. That's been difficult. And so there's a lot of like difficulties that we've had to overcome. It's caused a lot of just annoyances and like just things that we've had to overcome and walk through. I'm hopeful that it's coming to an end. It's been really hard with the church because we've shut everything down. We used to have all kinds of stuff going on at the church. And now really the only thing that we're allowed to do is like have a service on Sunday. And that's it. But we've closed down all of our small groups. We've closed down all of our outside events. We even canceled all of our Christmas parties. We canceled our Christmas Eve service. Like that's been the tragedy of this whole thing.
Because now
is-
more than ever, they need you guys.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And you know what? Like a lot of the things that the government is doing, I don't necessarily know if it's the best thing. Like, I don't know if it's good for everyone to be, hunkered down at home by themselves. We've seen domestic abuse go up, like just skyrocketing. Domestic abuse. We've seen suicide rates skyrocketing. We've seen depression and anxiety and all these types of things just off the charts because of the isolation. Man was not meant to be alone. I mean,
Well,
think about it.
you're absolutely right. I agree with you on that. And I hate to cut you off, but I was going to mention one thing before
yeah.
you keep going. It's pretty obvious to me. And this is the first time, we're not even in person, we're on Zoom, but this is the first time that you and I have had a conversation. And I can tell already you are a man of pretty much unshakable faith, as far as I'm concerned. However, you are far and few between. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people that do not have unshakable faith. And when excuse my language because of what we're talking about here, but when the shit hits the fan, a lot of them lose their faith.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do. People are human. But every day people I get depressed. I go through depression. Cody suffers from it. I don't know if you do or not, but a lot of people that I know do. And along with that comes self-doubt.
Yeah.
As well as doubt for other things as well. Because if you doubt yourself, you know what I mean? You're probably going to doubt a lot of other things as well.
But I
Right.
think
So-
people forget that just because you find religion doesn't mean you're not going to have those things either.
Right.
You know, I think a lot of people think, oh, I'll read the Bible and I'll magically be better. And it's like, no, that's not how it works either, I don't think. It's a process. You've got to buckle down and find who you are, really. And if not, in my opinion, like you brought up hell earlier. In my opinion, I think hell can also be used as a metaphor for your own, like you just said, your own self-worth or your own self-look. If you don't like the look of what you are, or you don't like who you are inside, you're in a way burning yourself. It's your job to find heaven on earth. Find out what makes you you so you can propagate the world in God's image, which is love and understanding and hope and all of that. How can you propagate that if you haven't found it in you? You can't. It doesn't work. I tried. You have to find that thing in you that finds your peace. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be necessarily becoming a pastor or a guitar player or whatever the fuck, but it has to be something. You have to have that belief in something more to make you better. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. It's still a struggle, I think. I don't
100%.
think
It's the hardest thing you got to do.
Yeah, I don't think it's a walk in the park by any means. I think it's probably one of the biggest things that we face as humans. One of the biggest trials and tribulations that we face as humans is our own self-doubt, our own, wondering whether or not what the guidelines that we've been living by, the moral compass that we've been living by is correct. Am I wrong? Is this person right? Are they all wrong? Am I the only one that's right? Some people think that way. Some people think that what they believe and their opinion is fact, and everybody else is an idiot. You know what I mean? That hasn't figured it out. But
that
I don't think
becomes
it works that way.
No, that's problematic as
Yeah,
shit.
exactly.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because now you've become myopic and closed-minded on many levels. So, you don't want that to happen.
No, and Ralph, I think you bring up a great point. Like, I don't want to come off as like I have everything together. You're right. I do have faith. Like I have faith. Like I 100% have put my faith in Jesus, and this is the path that I'm going down. But I don't believe like I engage in conversations with a lot of atheists and stuff. I don't believe that atheists are idiots. Like I don't believe. If you don't believe what I believe, I don't believe that you're an idiot. Like, I don't believe that you're stupid. Like there's a lot of smart, really smart people out there who aren't Christians, who don't believe in what I believe in. Now, I think they're wrong, but I don't think they're idiots. Like, does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
like,
no, absolutely.
Yeah. So like you and I, we can disagree. That doesn't mean that I think less of you as a person, or I think you're an idiot or anything like that. It's just, we just believe different things.
Right. Yeah.
And at the end of our lives, we're going to find out if either we were both wrong, which is possible, or one of us is wrong and the other one was right. Like, we're going to find out, because that's the thing about truth is like, there can only be one truth. Like, you can't have multiple truths. There's one truth. Like, we can all believe different things, but either everyone's wrong or one person's right and everyone else is wrong, but we can't all be right. Right? Because that's how truth works. Like, there's one truth, and like, we're all looking for that truth. And I think that I found truth. But sometimes, yeah, like I struggle with doubt. Like, there's things in the Bible that I read and I'm like, man, what does that mean? Like, I don't get that. Or things will happen in my life and I'm like, God, why are you allowing this to happen in my life? Like, I don't understand why this is happening. But as I'm going through that and I'm struggling, like I have faith. Like, I trust that God is good and that he's kind and that he is going to walk with me through these situations. But some days that's hard. Some days it's hard to have that faith.
Well, I think that little, I don't know what it would be considered. It's just like this little, it's like a little story, and I think you can like buy it, you know, at the what's the place that sells the trinkets to dress up your house, the home decor place. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's
the
always
big
got
box
that
home.
It's always
Hobby Lobby,
it's,
and like that.
it's
hey,
always,
no buzz marketing. No buzz marketing.
Oh,
they've
sorry,
always
sorry.
got that.
I'll
They've always
beep 'em
got
out.
that. They've always got that story on there where the guy's walking on the beach. You know what I mean?
Oh, footprints.
In the footprints.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So the whole point of that story, the moral, if you will, is that the guy was self-doubt. You know, he had some doubt.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
And it wasn't doubt in himself; it was doubt in his God.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and at the end of the story, obviously, he says, "Well, the time that you only saw one set of footprints is because I was carrying you." You know what I mean? Which is kind of cool, but not everybody's going to see that, and not everybody realizes that they're going through that. But I think that is what's going on in most cases. A lot of people will have those moments, and in a COVID-19 situation, which is almost unprecedented in some ways, because we ever shut down the country like this? I don't think so.
No, not in my lifetime.
So, yeah.
No.
I'm older than all y'all.
So you would imagine that would watch it, buddy. That would imagine that this would be a time where people are really starting to question things and they're fearful. You know most people do not have the strength to have the fortitude of your unshakable faith, Mike. So when that time comes and they're sick and they're spitting up blood, they get scared. You know what I mean?
I think there's a fine line though between fortitude and, I mean, it's not like he just woke up and was like, bing, here I am. I mean, I've known Mike a long time. He's put in a lot of work to understand what he's understood. You know what I mean? And I think the shakeability comes from, oh, look, I'm going to be all fancy schmancy. The whole, the parable, is it a parable? Shit, I'm not going to be fancy schmancy. It's the story, planting the seed on the rock foundation versus the ground.
Yeah, the parable of the sower.
There you go. It's the same thing. The people, and I'm not knocking anybody for this, but the people who have that reaction, you could argue, haven't done the internal work to find that part of them. And so it's not as strong because they haven't taken the time to question and think and read and study and make the truth up that they need and find the truth that they need to find.
Yeah, I guess as we're, trying to land the plane here, I think a lot of people they don't want to think about it. Like a lot of people don't want to think about death. They don't want to think about what comes next. So there's that aspect. Then there's another aspect of a lot of people they don't want to be responsible. Like, as far as Christianity and belief, like if you put your faith in Jesus, like you're saying, I mean, you're also taking on like a lifestyle, like, and a lot of people don't want to come to Jesus, even if they think like, oh yeah, I do believe that Jesus is real and he's Lord, but I don't want to give up all these things that I really like doing. And there's an aspect of that. But I think a lot of people, they just don't want to think about it. Just don't want to think about death. And I think COVID, I think Ralph, you brought this point forward really well in a much more graphic way about coughing up blood and stuff. But COVID has forced people to come to terms with their own finitude, their own mortality, the fact that life is short, you are not invincible, and that you're going to die in some point, and COVID has done that to the world, to everyone at the same time, to say like, guess what, you guys, you're mortal, you're gonna die, deal with it,
figure it out. Yeah, that's true. That's fucking true. Is that the moral we're leaving on this leaving this podcast?
Well, it's
on?
pretty deep. It's pretty deep. It definitely makes you sit back and think and go, yeah, you know what, you know.
Well, the thing is I mean, I'm being silly, but at the same time, it's true though. I mean, everybody in once got bitch slapped with reality of, hey, we ain't immortal, guys. I don't care how young you are. There's people who are younger than all of us getting sick, really sick because of this thing, and maybe people need to make a little bit more effort to kind of embrace these thoughts. I'm not saying be like morbid and get hardcore into it, but you kind of gotta accept it to some extent. You know, it's not going anywhere.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, Mike, what are your thoughts? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel, or is the light at the end of the tunnel basically being someone like you who is firmly planted with both feet on the ground into his faith in God? Is that the light at the end of the tunnel, or is there a light at the end of the tunnel for everyone right now with COVID? What are your personal thoughts on that?
So my personal thoughts are this, that the scriptures tell us that if you have the faith of a mustard seed, that you can be saved. Like you don't have to have amazing faith to find salvation in Jesus. You can have a itty bitty teeny tiny little bit of faith and like, hey, Jesus, like if you're really there, you reveal yourself to me. If you're really there, like, and I'm messing things up, please forgive me of my sins and save me. Like I need you to save me because I can't save myself. And I believe that is the only, solution to the problem of humanity, the problem of everything that you're struggling with as a human. I believe that you can make your way through life and, a bunch of other ways. And there's people who aren't Christians who have done great things in the world. I'm not saying that you can't do amazing things if you're not a believer in Jesus. But I do believe this, that you're only going to have a finite impact because you are a finite person. And through salvation, through faith in Jesus, you have an infinite impact because you will live eternally and you're building God's kingdom. You're not building your own kingdom. And so it's kind of the way that I see it.
Right on, dude. Mike,
Right on, bro.
you are my brother. You have been my brother a long time. Thank you for coming on, my friend.
Yeah.
Mike, good talking to you today, brother. Hopefully we'll do this again real soon.
Cool. Hey, Ralph, it was super good to get to talk with you and meet you. You seem like a really cool guy. And I've listened to a lot of Ravenscroft and Serpent as well. Good stuff, man. Like I really enjoy it. So
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, dude, we're definitely going to want to have you.
I've watched some of your videos on YouTube and I thought they were fantastic. Everybody, you got to check out Mike. He's got a YouTube video. So go ahead and plug that, Mike.
Yeah. So I have my main YouTube channel, which, I never try to be a YouTube star. I just like teaching music is just, it's a drum education channel. Although recently I've been doing a lot of like reaction videos to different music. So if you want me to react to something, a song that you like, leave it in the comments on one of my videos and I'll check it out and react to it. And then I have another channel that is kind of my pastor channel where I read the Bible and I talk about scripture and things like that. And if you're interested in that kind of stuff, jump on over there. And again, if you have a question about the Bible, leave it in the comments and I would be happy to make a video discussing that or talking about that and helping people out there. I just like helping people, and making videos is fun.
Absolutely. So go check those out. Follow Mike because he absolutely deserves the follows. He does a lot of great work. And Mike, we're going to have you back on because we need to have more. I love having these kind of conversations. So we're going to have to do something with this. Have you extra episodes, do some other show, maybe do some experimenting with this truth here. So
cool, man.
We'll have to keep you guys posted. Until then, stay strong. Keep it beautiful.
Yeah, guys, don't forget, comment,
ask questions
in the comment section. Ask questions. If this is a topic that you'd like us to talk more about, Mike is an expert. He's a theologian, so this would be really, really interesting coming at it from the three viewpoints. And if you guys join in, we can answer some of your questions. So make sure you leave some comments.
Absolutely. Comments down below and ALHSY questions at gmail.com.
Smash the like button.
Smash it.
A lot's happened since yesterday, guys.
I really
Take
want to
care.
see how long we can keep this going. We're just all taking turns. We're going to do this.
Take
This
care
is
of
my
yourself.
culture. You're good. You're beautiful. See you next time.
That's right.
Wear a mask.
Headphones on. Volume up.
Don't wear a mask.
Oh no. They're gonna demonetize you now.
Ah, crap.